Isn't it amusing how one day you can wake up and suddenly realize your life is akin to a slow-motion train wreck, all while you're busy pretending that everything is just fine? That's precisely how it hit me when I finally faced the truth. My marriage to Ella was crumbling. After 15 years filled with ups and downs, laughter and tears, everything began to disintegrate under the burden of unspoken resentments. She had begun to drift away, the warmth that once existed between us transforming into a cold, distant sea. I could feel the resentment emanating from her, and it gnawed at me deep inside. "I feel neglected, Jack," she confessed one night, her voice tinged with frustration. "We need to do something before this gets any worse." Initially, I brushed it aside. Work had been overwhelming, deadlines piling up like neglected laundry, and I was emotionally exhausted. Therapy seemed unnecessary to me, like wasting money on something we could resolve ourselves. Yet, guilt clawed at me. Perhaps I was the one who allowed our marriage to falter. Maybe I should give her what she desired, even if I didn't have faith in it. "All right," I replied, biting my tongue to suppress my irritation. "We can see a therapist, but I'm skeptical about it making a difference." Ella's eyes sparked with a flicker of hope, and in that moment, I realized she was serious. "Thank you. I genuinely think this could help us," she said, her tone softer, almost pleading. I felt a small tug of something inside me, but it was buried beneath layers of doubt. Upon arriving at the therapist's office, I was instantly struck by the polished atmosphere, warm hues, inviting furniture, and that soothing scent of lavender wafting through the air. I nearly laughed. This wasn't a miraculous spa. This was about our marriage. Liam, the therapist, entered the room, and I couldn't deny he had a confident aura about him. Dashing, with an easy smile, he appeared genuinely invested in our well-being. But as I sat there, watching Ella practically glow in his presence, I felt myself fading into the background. "Let's begin with you, Ella. How do you feel about your marriage?" Liam inquired, his gaze locked onto her. Ella dove right in, sharing her feelings of being unloved and unappreciated. I sat there, a mix of embarrassment and irritation swirling inside me. It felt like a public trial, with me in the hot seat. I attempted to interject, to share my perspective, but every time I opened my mouth, Ella shot me a look that silenced me. "Jack is just so busy with work," she remarked, her tone dripping with disdain. "I feel like I'm living with a ghost." Liam nodded, his focus unwavering. "It seems like you're feeling quite alone, Ella. Is that correct?" I was the ghost, and she was reveling in the attention Liam bestowed upon her. Anger simmered beneath my skin. I wanted to scream at her. How could she not recognize my efforts? Instead, I clenched my fists and took a deep breath, hoping this would eventually pass like a bad cold. As the sessions progressed, it became evident that Liam was a catalyst for change in Ella. She flourished under his attention, gaining confidence as she articulated her feelings. It was akin to witnessing a flower bloom right before my eyes, while I remained rooted to the ground, helpless. "Jack, I deserve more than what you're offering me," Ella said one evening, her tone sharp. "Liam understands me. He listens. You're just distracted." "Distracted?" I was working my tail off to support us, but each time I attempted to voice my frustrations, she'd shut me down, painting me as the villain. The more she lauded Liam's support, the more my heart sank. It was as if she had discovered a lifeline in him, one I was failing to provide. I yearned to confront her, to tell her how absurd she was being, but a part of me trembled at what that confrontation could lead to. I had no proof, just an instinct gnawing at me. The breaking point arrived during one of our sessions when Liam proposed an exercise to enhance our connection. Ella's face lit up as if it were Christmas morning. A knot twisted in my stomach as I watched her eagerly agree. "Let's take turns sharing what we admire about each other," he suggested, glancing between us. I couldn't bring myself to do it. I felt like a fraud, sitting there listening to her sing Liam's praises while I sat in silence. When my turn came, I merely shrugged, barely managing to meet her gaze. "I don't know," I mumbled. Ella's disappointment pierced deeper than any knife. "You could at least make an effort, Jack," she snapped, frustration spilling out of her. This is supposed to help us. In that moment, I fully realized just how much I had lost her. Sitting there, feeling more isolated than ever, I understood that something had to change, or I would lose her forever. But the idea of change was overwhelming, and all I could see were the widening cracks in our marriage. I never imagined I would turn into the type of guy who snoops around his wife's life like a paranoid detective. Yet after several weeks of those therapy sessions, I began to notice things, small, subtle shifts in Ella that raised alarm bells in my mind. She was becoming secretive, and it went beyond just therapy. Initially, I dismissed it. Perhaps it was merely the therapy working its magic, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Ella started staying late after her sessions, claiming she needed to discuss personal growth with Liam. Personal growth? More like personal betrayal, if you asked me. Then there were her clothes. The comfy sweatpants and oversized tees she used to wear around the house were a thing of the past. Now, she donned tight dresses and high heels that seemed far more suited for a night out on the town than a therapy session. I didn't want to be that guy, the jealous and controlling husband, but an unsettling instinct told me something was definitely off. "Where do you think you're going dressed like that?" I asked one evening, unable to hold back any longer. "Out with some friends," she replied casually, flipping her hair over her shoulder as if she didn't have a clue about the turmoil stirring inside me. "Friends? You look like you're heading to a club, not just grabbing a bite to eat." I shot back, irritation creeping into my tone. "I'm not a child, Jack. I can wear whatever I want. Besides, don't you trust me?" she snapped, a hint of defensiveness in her voice. Trust? The word echoed in my mind, taunting me relentlessly. How could I trust her when she seemed to prioritize her time with Liam over our relationship? One night, as I was unwinding after a long day, I caught a snippet of her conversation on the phone. She was in the bedroom, while I was on the couch, pretending to be absorbed in a show, all while eavesdropping. I heard her giggling, and talking intimately with someone. My heart raced, and suspicion clawed at me like a hungry predator. "Yeah, I can't wait to see you again, Liam," she purred, her voice oozing with a happiness I hadn't heard from her in ages. Sick to my stomach, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Who was she speaking to in that way? It couldn't be Liam. She wouldn't be that brazen, would she? But the more I listened, the more it seemed like my worst fears were unfolding right before my eyes. My gut instinct was right, and the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Ella was having an affair. In the days that followed, I floated through a haze of anger and doubt, replaying that conversation in my head over and over. Each time I looked at her, I saw a stranger, someone who was playing me for a fool. I needed evidence. I needed something concrete to confront her with. The next week, when Ella left for her therapy session, I made a choice that felt wrong yet necessary. I decided to follow her. I felt like a complete creep, but the thought of losing her to some sleazy therapist ignited a fire inside me. I parked a block away, watching as she entered the office. The world outside felt surreal, and I gripped the steering wheel like it was a lifeline. Time dragged on until I finally saw the lights in the building flicker on. Nausea washed over me. I couldn't just sit there any longer. After about 30 minutes, the lights in the therapy room finally dimmed. My heart raced as I stepped out of the car and approached the building, trying to remain inconspicuous. I inched up to the window and pressed my face against the glass. That's when I heard it, the unmistakable sounds of intimacy, muffled yet clear enough to send me spiraling into a rage. It felt like a scene ripped from a nightmare, and I was helplessly caught in it. My fists clenched as my breathing quickened, the gravity of the situation settling in. Ella and Liam, together, betraying everything we had built over the years. Overcome with a whirlwind of anger and disbelief, I didn't think. I charged through the door, my heart thundering in my chest. The moment I stepped inside, I was confronted with the shocking sight of Ella entwined with Liam on the therapy couch. Their heads snapped up, eyes wide with horror. Ella's face drained of color as she scrambled to cover herself, while Liam clumsily tried to hide. It was a pathetic display that only ignited my fury further. "Jack!" Ella gasped, her voice a mix of shock and panic. "What are you doing here?" What am I doing here? What the hell are you two doing? I roared, my voice reverberating off the walls. So, this is how you've been spending your time behind my back? You're really going to sit there and act like the innocent wife while sleeping with your therapist? Liam attempted to respond, but I had no patience for his excuses. I felt utterly betrayed, humiliated, and enraged all at once. You think you can play with my life like this? You've shattered everything we built, Ella. Ella's frantic pleas fell on deaf ears as I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling as I hit record. I was determined to expose this betrayal for the world to see. I wanted everyone to know what kind of person she truly was. Please stop, she begged, tears streaming down her cheeks. We can talk about this. No, I replied coldly, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. There's nothing to discuss. You've made your choice. With that, I stepped back, capturing every moment of their disgrace in a single video. I couldn't wait to show her what real consequences looked like. I stood there, frozen in disbelief, a tumult of emotions crashing in my chest like a hurricane. The sight before me felt unreal. Ella, my wife of 15 years, entwined with Liam on that therapy couch, her face torn between shock and guilt. Their expressions went pale as they realized I was there. And for a brief moment, the world around me faded away, leaving just the three of us in that cramped room. Ella scrambled to cover herself, a frantic look in her eyes, while Liam, caught off guard, backed into the corner like a frightened animal. The humiliation washed over me like ice water, chilling me to my core. My heart raced, adrenaline surging through my veins, fueling the fury that threatened to explode. How could you do this? I yelled, my voice quaking with rage. How could you betray me like this? You're my wife. And you? I swung my glare toward Liam, my contempt boiling over. You're nothing but a pathetic excuse for a therapist, preying on vulnerable clients. The words hung thick in the air, suffocating us all. Ella's eyes flicked nervously between us, her carefully constructed facade starting to shatter under the weight of her deception. Jack, please let me explain, she stammered, desperation creeping into her voice. Explain what? I barked, incredulous fury mixing with disbelief. How you've been sleeping with a man who's supposed to save our marriage. How you've lied to my face while I've been working my fingers to the bone to provide for us. My hands trembled as the reality of the moment sunk in. Do you honestly think I can just overlook this? In that moment of clarity, I realized I had to take control. My marriage, my dignity, my entire life hung in the balance. I pulled out my phone, the screen illuminating the darkened room as I hit record. Jack, no! Ella shrieked, panic flooding her features. You don't need to do this. We can talk about it. I barely heard her over the thunderous beating of my heart. You've made your choices, Ella. Now it's my turn. I shot back, shaking with outrage. I'm going to expose the real you, the lying, cheating woman you've become. Liam's face turned a sickly shade of red as he fumbled to escape. You don't need to do this, man, he pleaded, his voice trembling, but I was in no mood for his remorse. I shoved him back into the chair with surprising force, fueled by my anger. Stay right where you are, I growled, my glare sharp enough to cut. Tears streamed down Ella's face as she pleaded with me. Please, Jack, this isn't what it looks like. I never intended for it to happen. Not what it looks like. I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh against the quiet of the room. What exactly does it look like, Ella? Because from where I stand, it seems pretty clear that you've been having an affair with your therapist. In her desperate eyes, I caught a fleeting glimpse of the woman I once adored, but it quickly vanished, replaced by the stark truth of the betrayal. I continued recording, determined to capture every moment. The shock on their faces, the full weight of their dishonesty. I wanted everyone to see how far they had fallen. This is going to everyone, I declared, my voice steady and chilling. Your parents, our friends, anyone who deserves to know the truth about you too. Ella's frantic pleas fell on deaf ears as I watched her spirit crumble. She looked small and vulnerable, but that only ignited my anger further. How dare she play the victim when she was the one who had shattered our lives? Just think about what you're doing, Liam said, his voice shaking as he tried to reason with me. You can't just destroy us like this. But reason had long since fled. You've already destroyed everything. This is the least I can do. A wave of satisfaction washed over me at the thought of exposing them both. They would face the consequences, and I would ensure it happened. Seeing them so entwined and filled with shame only fueled my desire for retribution. I was done being the oblivious husband. Now I was the man who would lay bare their lies for the world to witness. Standing there with my phone recording, a strange sense of calm washed over me. I was reclaiming control of my life, and despite the pain, I knew I had to see this through. I wasn't just fighting for my dignity. I was fighting to regain my identity from the ashes of this betrayal. Do you think you can just walk away from this? I asked, my voice low but charged with intensity. You've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed, Ella. I won't let you escape the consequences. With that, I clicked the stop button on my phone, feeling a tumultuous mix of triumph and sorrow as I confronted the reality of the situation. My heart thundered in my chest, a relentless reminder of the pain ahead, but I was resolute in my determination to see this through. I wouldn't be the victim any longer. I would take charge of my fate. I stormed back home, my heart racing from the confrontation, adrenaline coursing through my veins. The image of Ella's panicked face haunted me, replaying the scene in my mind like a broken record. I felt coiled, ready to snap. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was a calculated assault on everything I cherished. I needed to respond, and I knew exactly how. Sitting at my desk, a surge of clarity mixed with anger washed over me. This was no longer merely about revenge. It was about revealing the truth. I pulled up the video on my phone, the damning recording of Ella and Liam intertwined, and my stomach churned at the sight. But backing down was not an option. I had to make them pay. I began by sending the video to Ella's closest friends and family members. It felt liberating, like I was unleashing a storm of truth into the world. You deserve to know who she truly is, I typed in the accompanying message. This is your friend, your sister, your daughter, showing her true colors. Each time I clicked the send button, it felt as though a massive weight was being lifted from my shoulders. I could almost hear the shocked gasps and whispers from the recipients, and that thought made me grin. Ella had invested so much effort into curating her perfect image, and now it was collapsing like a house of cards. Within hours, my phone buzzed incessantly with notifications. The scandal erupted like wildfire, engulfing her life in a frenzy of gossip and judgment. I watched with a dark sense of satisfaction as the chaos unfolded. Friends who once championed her now questioned her character, and the whispers followed her everywhere she went. Did you hear about Ella? I can't believe she'd do something like that. Her therapist? Seriously? What was she thinking? It was exhilarating to watch her world spiral out of control. But deep down, I understood this was merely the beginning. I needed to turn up the heat. So, I created a social media account under an anonymous name and crafted a post that laid bare our relationship. I highlighted our joyful memories, the love we had shared, and culminated it all with the shocking video. I poured my heart into the words, each sentence steeped in raw emotion and anguish, while deftly portraying Ella as the villain in this tragic tale. It's astonishing how someone you once cherished can morph into a stranger overnight, I wrote. What do you do when the one you love betrays your trust? Here's a glimpse into my world of heartbreak. As soon as I hit publish, notifications exploded. The post spread like wildfire, with people sharing it, commenting, and tagging others. It raced through social media and beyond, picking up momentum with every interaction. Days turned into a blur as the story gained traction. The video circulated widely, eventually catching the attention of local news outlets. My heart raced as I saw the headline. Local man exposes wife's affair with therapist. Ella and Liam quickly became the subjects of a national scandal, their names plastered across news websites. Each headline a dagger piercing through my already wounded heart. A twisted sense of satisfaction washed over me. This was the reckoning I had promised myself. I could see the notifications pouring in on Ella's phone, friends and family desperately trying to reach her for answers, grappling with the shocking reality. It was an avalanche of consequences she could not escape. She had sought to dismantle our marriage, and now she was reaping the whirlwind. I remembered the look on her face during our last confrontation, the desperate plea for understanding. But I had no understanding left to give. I had played the part of the good husband for far too long while she plotted my downfall, and now it was her turn to face the consequences. As days morphed into a week, the scandal continued to unravel. Ella found herself trapped, her professional life crumbling as colleagues and clients began to distance themselves. They didn't want to be associated with a cheater, and it was evident in her now empty office and the hushed conversations in the hallways. Liam faced his own reckoning. His professional license came under scrutiny as investigations unfolded, revealing his unethical conduct as a therapist. He had crossed the line, and now he was poised to pay the price. Ella tried reaching out to me, her messages brimming with anger and despair. "You're ruining my life, Jack," she texted, but I felt no sympathy. "You did that yourself," I replied coldly, watching her messages come in one after another, each more frantic than the last. "Please, let's talk about this. I'll do anything to fix it." I couldn't bring myself to respond. I avoided even glancing at her desperate words. I had given her countless chances, and now she expected me to be the hero again? It was far too late for that. The exhilaration of revenge began to dull into something heavier, a combination of satisfaction and sadness. I realized that while I was tearing down her life, I was also dismantling the life we had built together. But I had to remind myself of the truth. This was her choice. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. Sitting alone in my room, witnessing the chaos unfold, I understood there was no turning back. I had opened Pandora's box, and now all that remained was to watch it unravel. The fallout from my revenge played out like a dark, twisted drama, with me as both the unwilling lead and the director orchestrating the calamity. The public humiliation I had set in motion didn't just affect Ella's social standing. It shattered her emotionally. I had expected anger, maybe a few tears, but I had not anticipated the depth of her breakdown. One evening, my phone rang with her frantic voice on the other end. "Jack, please, you have to talk to me." Her tone was raw, desperate, like a drowning person reaching for a lifeline. "Why should I?" I replied, trying to maintain an icy demeanor. "You made your choices. You're the one who decided to betray me. Just listen. I'll do anything to fix this. I'll end things with Liam. I promise," she pleaded, her voice breaking with desperation. For a fleeting moment, sympathy flickered within me, but I quickly extinguished it. I remembered the laughter she had shared with him, the way she had tossed our marriage aside for a fleeting thrill. "It's too late for that, Ella," I said, my voice firm and unwavering. "You've lost your chance. You no longer have a place in my life." The silence on the other end was deafening. I could envision her, a shattered woman, clutching the phone as the weight of reality crashed down upon her. She begged for me to reconsider, but I couldn't. The decision had been made. After we hung up, I felt an unsettling mix of satisfaction and sadness wash over me. I had wanted to reclaim my life, but at what cost? Our marriage, once filled with joy and love, lay in ruins. With renewed determination, I met with my attorney the following day, armed with all the evidence I had collected, the video, the recorded conversations, and the mountain of betrayal. "I want to ensure I secure a favorable settlement," I stated firmly. "She needs to understand the consequences of her actions." As we navigated the legal process, it became increasingly evident how fragile Ella had become. She was merely a shadow of her former self, abandoned by friends and family who no longer wanted to be associated with the cheater. I observed as her phone lit up with calls from those who had once stood by her, now hastily distancing themselves from the wreckage of her life. I'll always remember the day I unexpectedly ran into one of Ella's old friends at the grocery store. "I can't believe what Ella did," she said, shaking her head as if she were trying to process a shocking revelation. "I used to really look up to her. It's just heartbreaking." That word, heartbreaking, stung deeply. Heartbreak was the last emotion I felt in that moment. I had spent far too long mired in despair while she twisted my feelings to suit her needs. Now, it was finally time for her to face the consequences of her actions. As the divorce proceedings unfolded, I became increasingly aware of the depths of Ella's suffering. She struggled to find work, her reputation tarnished by whispers of infidelity and betrayal. The once vibrant, confident woman I had married now drifted through life like a ghost, lost and hollow. Liam faced his own reckoning, too. Investigations into his unethical behavior as a therapist began to unravel, and the media frenzy surrounding our scandal reached a fever pitch. News outlets eagerly dug into his background, exposing a troubling pattern of manipulation and exploitation. The thought of him losing his license filled me with a sense of vindication. He deserved every ounce of fallout coming his way. But amidst the chaos, a persistent feeling of regret crept into my mind. Had I gone too far? Was my quest for revenge truly worth the destruction it had wrought on her life? It was a bitter pill to swallow, but I reminded myself that I had fought fiercely for my dignity. Ella's desperate pleas for forgiveness echoed through my mind, filling the void where warmth and love had once thrived. She reached out to me repeatedly, each call and text a painful reminder of what we had lost. "I miss us, Jack," she wrote one night, her words heavy with sorrow. "Please, can't we at least talk?" Every time I read her messages, a surge of icy rage coursed through me. How could she claim to miss us when she had shattered our lives for a fleeting thrill? I couldn't bring myself to respond, unwilling to reopen the wounds of betrayal. As the divorce date approached, I felt an unusual lightness begin to settle over me. It was time to bring this painful chapter to a close and reclaim my identity. I had fought valiantly to preserve what little dignity I had left, and now it was time to forge ahead. In the courtroom, a swirl of emotions coursed through me, relief mingled with sorrow. When the judge finalized our divorce, I took a deep breath, ready to step into a future unshackled by betrayal and deceit. Ella sat across the room, looking small and fragile, tears glistening in her eyes. I wanted to feel compassion for her, to extend some semblance of kindness, but I couldn't muster that impulse. I was done playing the victim. I was ready to sever the chains of our shared past. As the gavel fell, sealing the fate of our marriage, I vowed to myself that I would never allow anyone to deceive me again. In the aftermath of my divorce, as the dust settled around me, I experienced a complex mix of emotions. Relief washed over me, intermingled with the remnants of anger and sadness that had haunted my life for so long. After enduring the shadows of betrayal, I was finally stepping into the light, eager to embrace a fresh start. The first step was to focus on myself. For years, I had prioritized Ella's needs above my own, neglecting my own passions and interests in the process. It was time to reclaim my identity. I began to hit the gym regularly, feeling the rush of adrenaline surge through my veins as I pushed my body to its limits. Each bead of sweat felt like a cleansing rain, washing away the residual pain and heartache. But it was about more than just physical change. I yearned for emotional growth as well. I immersed myself in self-help literature and explored online communities where others shared their stories of betrayal and recovery. One evening, while browsing Reddit, I stumbled upon a vibrant forum filled with people who had weathered similar storms. Sharing my story became a liberating experience, a chance to articulate my pain and offer insights to others. I titled my post "Caught in a Web of Betrayal: My Journey from Heartbreak to Freedom." As I recounted the saga of my marriage, the affair, and my pursuit of justice, I felt a sense of lightness. Supportive comments began pouring in, reminding me that I wasn't alone in this struggle. "Thank you for sharing. Your story is a reminder that we can reclaim our dignity," one commenter wrote. Another added, "You give hope to those of us still healing. Keep going." Each message became a thread in the tapestry of my recovery, binding me to a community that truly understood my journey. Over the following months, I began to rebuild my social life. Friends I hadn't seen in years reached out, eager to reconnect. We shared drinks, swapped stories, and laughed until our sides ached reminiscing about old times. I realized how much I had missed these connections while entangled in the turmoil of my marriage. Then came the exhilarating moments of newfound freedom. Traveling to destinations I had always dreamed of visiting and indulging in hobbies I had long ignored. I signed up for a painting class, letting my creativity flow onto the canvas like a rushing river, each brushstroke symbolizing my journey toward healing. I found solace in nature, spending weekends hiking and embracing the beauty of the world around me. It was during one of those hikes that I met someone who would profoundly change my life. Her name was Chloe, and her warmth enveloped me the moment we began talking. We bonded over our shared love for the outdoors, and soon our casual meetups blossomed into something deeper. For the first time in years, I felt the thrill of genuine connection. With Chloe, I felt safe. I could share my vulnerabilities without the fear of betrayal hovering over me. Our relationship was built on mutual respect and honesty, qualities that had been sorely absent in my previous marriage. We laughed together, explored new horizons, and confided our dreams in one another. The transformation I underwent was nothing short of miraculous. I wasn't just healing, I was flourishing. I realized that life was too precious to be shackled by the past. The hard-earned lessons I had learned fueled my determination to never let anyone take advantage of me again. I vowed to protect my heart while remaining open to new possibilities. As I continued to share my journey on Reddit, my story became a beacon of hope for others navigating the stormy seas of infidelity. I highlighted the importance of self-respect and the fight for one's dignity, encouraging others to reclaim their lives and pursue their happiness. Don't let someone else's betrayal define you, I advised in one post. You have the power to rise from the ashes, stronger than ever. Trust me, the light at the end of the tunnel is worth fighting for. The response was overwhelming. I received messages from people inspired to take charge of their lives and seek the happiness they deserved. It was a beautiful reminder that even in the darkest moments, there was always a path forward. With each passing day, the weight of my past grew lighter, and the shadows that once loomed over me began to fade into the background. I had broken free from the chains of betrayal and emerged with a renewed zest for life. As I stood atop a mountain during one of my hikes, the sun dipping below the horizon, I took a deep breath, filled with gratitude. I was finally free. Free from the lies, the manipulation, and the heartache. I had left the past behind, ready to embrace the future with open arms and an open heart. Life was waiting for me, and I was more than ready to step into this new, vibrant chapter.